Jasmine Carter stood frozen at the entrance of the Metropolitan Arts Center, staring at a sea of elaborate costumes, feathered masks, and glittering Venetian gowns. Her simple black cocktail dress suddenly felt like a mistake of catastrophic proportions. The invitation had said evening attire, not transform yourself into 18th-century royalty. She clutched her small purse tighter, debating whether to turn around and leave before anyone noticed her. But Rebecca from accounting had specifically mentioned that their firm's biggest clients would be here tonight, and making an appearance could help her struggling career. At 28, Jasmine was still trying to prove herself worthy of more than administrative tasks. A kind word from a stranger. First time at one of these elaborate disasters, a warm voice asked beside her. Jasmine turned to find a man in his mid-30s wearing a simple black suit, no mask, no costume. His dark brown hair was slightly tousled, and his eyes held genuine amusement rather than judgment. He looked as out of place as she felt, which somehow made her breathing easier. "Is it that obvious?" she asked, managing a small smile. "Only to someone else who forgot to read the fine print," he said, extending his hand. Devon Sterling. Fellow costume refuser. Jasmine Carter. Professional event misfit. She shook his hand, surprised by how natural the gesture felt. Devon grinned. "Well, Jasmine Carter, I've been to about 50 of these charity galas, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that the people having the least fun are always the ones in the biggest costumes. We're actually the smart ones." The balcony conversation. The ballroom buzzed with orchestral music and champagne-fueled laughter. Jasmine tried to blend in, but every elaborate mask and theatrical gesture reminded her she didn't belong. When a woman in a full Marie Antoinette costume commented loudly about some people not understanding dress codes, Jasmine felt heat rise to her cheeks. She slipped through French doors onto a stone balcony overlooking the city lights. The cool evening air was a relief from the suffocating pretense inside. "Running away?" Devon's voice came from the shadows where he leaned against the railing. "Strategic retreat," Jasmine corrected, joining him at the railing. "There's a difference. Important distinction." He studied her profile in the moonlight. "Though I have to say, you're handling this better than most would. I watched 3 people flee in tears from events like this." Jasmine laughed despite herself. "The night is young. Give me time." "What brought you here tonight?" Devon asked, his tone genuinely curious rather than making polite conversation. She considered giving the practiced answer about networking and career advancement. Instead, she found herself being honest. "I'm trying to prove I'm more than the person who schedules meetings and orders office supplies. My boss mentioned important clients would be here. I thought showing up might help me be seen differently." Unexpected understanding. Devon nodded slowly. "The frustration of being underestimated. I know that feeling." "Do you?" Jasmine couldn't hide her skepticism. Everything about Devon suggested confidence and success, from his tailored suit to his easy manner. "More than you'd think," he said quietly. "People see what they want to see. Sometimes that's based on assumptions about your background, your appearance, or just their own narrow perspective. It takes a lot of energy to keep proving yourself." The understanding in his voice caught her off guard. Jasmine had expected platitudes or dismissal, not empathy. She studied him more carefully. There was something different about Devon, something that didn't quite fit the typical wealthy donor profile she'd encountered at corporate events. "Why are you really here tonight?" she asked. Devon smiled. "Honestly? Obligation. I support the Arts Foundation, but these events feel like theater. Everyone performing their version of generosity and success. I keep coming hoping to meet someone real." "And have you?" His eyes met hers directly. "Actually, yes. About 10 minutes ago on a balcony." Jasmine felt her heart skip. She'd been on dates, had relationships, but they always felt like interviews where she gave the right answers to be chosen. This felt different. Devon looked at her like she was already interesting, already enough, wrong dress and all. "I should probably go back inside," she said, though she made no move to leave. "Try to salvage something from this networking opportunity. Or," Devon said carefully, "you could stay out here and talk to me. Tell me about the work you actually want to do instead of scheduling meetings. Tell me what brought you to this city, what makes you laugh, what you dream about when you're not busy proving yourself to people who should already see your value." The invitation hung in the air between them. Inside, the party continued with its elaborate costumes and careful conversations. Out here, under the stars with a stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger, Jasmine faced a choice. A different path. "I came to this city 3 years ago from a small town in Ohio," she began, surprised by her own willingness to share. "Everyone back home thought I was crazy to leave a stable job at my uncle's insurance company. But I wanted more than stability. I wanted to create things, to be part of something that mattered." Devon listened with complete attention, not interrupting, not checking his phone, not looking past her toward more important people. Just listening. "I ended up in marketing because it seemed practical," she continued. "But what I really love is writing. Creating stories that connect with people, that make them feel something real. I have notebooks full of ideas, campaigns that could actually make a difference, but nobody at my firm takes suggestions from the coordinator who orders their lunch." "Have you shown anyone these ideas?" Devon asked. "Once. My supervisor said they were too emotional, too risky. Clients want safe and tested, not creative and meaningful." Devon's expression hardened slightly. "Your supervisor sounds like someone afraid of anything that might outshine them." The observation was so accurate that Jasmine laughed. "That's probably true. But it doesn't change my situation." "Maybe not immediately," Devon said. "But situations change. People who recognize real talent exist. You just have to keep believing your voice matters until you find them." The promise. They talked for over an hour, the party inside forgotten. Jasmine learned that Devon worked in technology, though he was vague about specifics. He'd grown up without much money, built his career through relentless work and calculated risks. He understood being underestimated, being dismissed, being told his ideas were too ambitious. "I should get your number," Devon said as the evening grew late. "If you're willing to risk coffee with someone you met while both improperly dressed." Jasmine smiled, pulling out her phone. "I think I can risk that." As she entered her number, Devon added quietly, "Thank you for tonight, Jasmine. For being exactly yourself. You have no idea how rare that is." Walking to the subway later, Jasmine replayed the evening in her mind. She'd gone to a gala to advance her career and instead found something unexpected. Someone who listened, who understood, who made her feel seen in a way she hadn't experienced before. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, "Already looking forward to that coffee. And for what it's worth, you wore exactly the right dress tonight." Jasmine smiled at her reflection in the subway window. Maybe wrong entrances sometimes led to right destinations. 3 days passed before Jasmine heard from Devon again. She'd started to wonder if their balcony conversation had been just a pleasant moment, nothing more. Then her phone buzzed during her lunch break with a simple message, "Coffee tomorrow morning? There's a place in Brooklyn I think you'd love." The next morning, Jasmine found herself standing outside a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop. The hand-painted sign read, "Common Grounds," and through the window, she could see mismatched furniture and walls covered in local artwork. It was the opposite of the corporate coffee chains she usually frequented. Devon was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs. He wore jeans and a simple gray sweater, looking more relaxed than he had at the gala. When he saw her, his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "You found it," he said, standing to greet her. "I wasn't sure if my directions were clear enough." "Your directions were perfect," Jasmine replied, sliding into the worn leather chair across from him. This place is amazing. How did you discover it? Devon smiled. I live a few blocks from here. This is my regular spot. The owner, Mrs. Chen, makes the best chai latte in the city, and she doesn't care if you sit here for hours writing or reading. As they talked, Jasmine found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did on dates. Devon asked about her writing, genuinely interested in the marketing campaigns she'd dreamed up. He listened as she described her vision for authentic storytelling that connected brands with real human experiences. The problem is that everyone wants formulas, Jasmine explained, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. They want to replicate what worked before instead of creating something new. But people can tell when content is manufactured. They crave authenticity. So why not start your own thing? Devon asked. Freelance consulting, your own agency eventually. Jasmine laughed, but there was no humor in it. With what resources? I'm barely covering rent on my coordinator's salary. Starting a business requires capital, connections, a safety net. I have none of those things. Devon was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Resources matter, but they're not everything. Some of the most successful people I know started with nothing but an idea and stubborn determination. Easy to say when you've made it, Jasmine said, then immediately regretted the sharp edge in her voice. Sorry. That came out wrong. No, you're right, Devon said evenly. I forget sometimes how hard those early struggles were. When you're past them, memory softens the edges. Learning his story. Over the next 2 hours, Devon shared pieces of his history. He'd grown up in a small apartment with his single mother, watching her work 3 jobs to keep them afloat. He'd put himself through college with scholarships and night shifts, building his first software program in a library computer lab because he couldn't afford his own equipment. When did things change? Jasmine asked, fascinated by this glimpse into his past. Gradually, then suddenly, Devon said. I created a data analytics tool that solved a problem I'd noticed in my part-time job. Started licensing it to small businesses. One of those businesses happened to be connected to a venture capital firm. Things grew from there. He spoke about success with an unusual humility, focusing more on luck and timing than his own intelligence or work ethic. Jasmine found it refreshing after years of corporate environments where everyone inflated their achievements. Do you ever miss it? She asked. The simplicity of when you were starting out? Devon's answer was immediate. Every single day. Success brings comfort, but it also brings complications. People treat you differently when they know you have money. Every interaction becomes transactional. You stop knowing who's genuine and who's calculating angles. The crisis at work. Jasmine's phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at the screen and felt her stomach drop. 7 missed calls from her office, 3 urgent emails from her supervisor. I'm so sorry, she said, already standing. Something's wrong at work. I have to go. Of course, Devon said, standing as well. Is everything okay? Jasmine quickly scanned the emails, her face paling. The Riverside Hotel campaign. Someone mixed up the promotional dates. The launch materials went out with last month's pricing. The client is furious. That's the campaign you coordinated? Devon asked. I coordinated everything except the final approval, which my supervisor handled. Jasmine felt panic rising. But I'm the one who compiled all the information. If there was an error, it came from me. By the time Jasmine reached her office, her supervisor Patricia was already in damage control mode, which apparently meant throwing Jasmine directly under the bus. In a conference room full of senior partners, Patricia presented a timeline that painted Jasmine as careless and incompetent. The coordinator provided incorrect information in the original brief, Patricia explained, her voice dripping with disappointment. I approved materials based on what I was given. The responsibility for fact-checking lies with the person compiling the data. Jasmine wanted to protest, to point out that she'd sent 3 confirmation emails about the pricing dates, all of which Patricia had approved. But the faces around the conference table had already decided her guilt. She was junior staff, easily replaceable, a convenient scapegoat. Ms. Carter, this kind of error costs the firm credibility and money, the managing partner said coldly. We'll need to discuss whether this position is the right fit for you. Translation: start looking for a new job. An unexpected advocate. That evening, Jasmine sat in her small apartment, staring at her laptop screen without seeing it. Her career, already struggling, was effectively over. Patricia would make sure everyone knew about this disaster. References would be poisoned. She'd probably end up back in Ohio, working at her uncle's insurance company, dreams abandoned. Her phone rang. Devon. Hey, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Sorry I had to run earlier. How bad is it? He asked gently. The kindness in his voice broke something in her. The whole story poured out: Patricia's betrayal, the confirmation emails that proved Jasmine had done everything correctly, the managing partner's thinly veiled termination threat. Do you have copies of those confirmation emails? Devon asked when she finished. Yes, but what does it matter? Patricia has seniority, connections. Nobody's going to believe me over her. Send them to me, Devon said. Just humor me. The mysterious resolution. 2 days later, Jasmine was called into an emergency meeting. She expected termination papers. Instead, she found the managing partner, Patricia, looking pale and defensive, and someone from the legal department. Ms. Carter, we've reviewed the email correspondence regarding the Riverside Hotel campaign, the managing partner said, his tone markedly different from their last conversation. It appears there was a miscommunication about approval processes. You are not at fault for this error. Jasmine blinked, confused. I'm not. Furthermore, your attention to detail and repeated confirmation attempts demonstrate exactly the kind of diligence we value. We'd like to discuss moving you into a junior strategist position, where your skills would be better utilized. After the meeting, as Jasmine walked back to her desk in a daze, she received a text from Devon: hope your day improved. That evening, over dinner at a quiet restaurant Devon had chosen, Jasmine confronted him directly. What did you do? I made a phone call, Devon admitted. Your firm does consulting work for several tech companies. One of those companies happens to value my opinion on vendor relationships. I simply mentioned that I'd heard concerning things about how they handle internal accountability. Devon, that's... Jasmine struggled with conflicting emotions. Relief, gratitude, but also unease. That's a lot of influence to use for someone you barely know. Questions and doubts. I know, Devon said quietly. And I wrestled with whether to intervene. But watching someone talented get scapegoated for someone else's incompetence made me angry. You deserved better. Jasmine studied him across the candlelit table. Who are you, really? You said you work in technology, but that's vague. You live in a modest neighborhood, drink coffee at local cafes, but you can make phone calls that change my career trajectory. Nothing adds up. Devon set down his fork, meeting her eyes directly. I've been trying to figure out how to answer that question since we met. The truth is complicated. Try me. I built a software company that grew faster and bigger than I ever imagined. I'm successful, yes. Very successful. But I learned early that leading with wealth changes every relationship. People see dollar signs instead of a person. So I live quietly, stay out of the press when possible, and try to have normal experiences. How successful? Jasmine asked, her voice careful. Devon hesitated. Successful enough that if I told you the full truth right now, this conversation would change. You'd start second-guessing every word, wondering about my motives, calculating implications. I don't want that. Not yet. The choice to trust. Jasmine sat back, processing this partial revelation. Part of her wanted to demand complete honesty, to know exactly who she was getting involved with. But another part understood his reasoning. She'd seen how people acted around wealth, the immediate shift in behavior. Okay, she said finally. I won't push for details you're not ready to share. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more interventions without asking me first. What you did helped me, and I'm grateful. But I need to build my career on my own merit, not on connections to someone with mysterious influence. Devon nodded seriously. You're right. I overstepped. It won't happen again without your permission. They finished dinner talking about other things, safer topics. But something had shifted between them. A foundation was forming, built on honesty and mutual respect, even as questions remained unanswered. Walking Jasmine to her subway stop later, Devon took her hand. I really like you, Jasmine Carter. Not because you need rescuing or because I want to play benefactor. I like how you see the world, how you refuse to compromise your values even when it would be easier. I like who I am when I'm with you. Jasmine squeezed his hand. I like you too, Devon Sterling. Mystery influence and all. As the subway pulled away, Jasmine watched Devon's figure recede into the crowd. She knew their story was just beginning, and that the full truth about who he was would eventually emerge. She just hoped that when it did, what they were building would be strong enough to survive it. Jasmine was enjoying her first week as a junior strategist when her world tilted on its axis. She'd stopped at a newsstand near her office to grab a coffee, and there on the cover of Forbes magazine was a face she knew intimately. Devon's face. But the headline made her blood run cold. Devon Sterling, the billionaire who disappeared from the spotlight, tech visionary returns with revolutionary AI platform. Billionaire. Not millionaire. Billionaire with a B. Her hands trembled as she bought the magazine and found a bench in a nearby park. The article detailed Devon's journey from struggling college student to founder of Sterling Technologies, a company valued at over $8 billion. $8 billion. The photos showed him at technology conferences, shaking hands with world leaders, accepting innovation awards. There were mentions of his philanthropy, hundreds of millions donated to education and technology access programs. Details about his minimalist lifestyle despite his wealth, his reputation for staying out of the social scene, his tendency to invest in people rather than just businesses. Everything he'd told her was true. He just hadn't mentioned the scale of it all. The confrontation. Jasmine called him immediately, her voice shaking. We need to talk. Now. They met at the same Brooklyn cafe where they'd had their first real conversation. Devon arrived looking worried, and his expression confirmed he knew what was coming. You saw the article, he said quietly, sliding into the seat across from her. Jasmine slapped the magazine onto the table between them. Billionaire, Devon? You let me think you were just comfortably successful. You sat here and talked about resources and starting businesses while you have enough money to fund 1,000 startups without noticing the expense. I know how this looks, Devon began, but Jasmine cut him off. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been playing some kind of game. Poor little marketing coordinator meets mysterious successful man. Did you think it was charming? Amusing? Was I some kind of social experiment? Jasmine, no. Devon's voice was firm, almost desperate. That's not what this was. That's never what this was. The explanation. Then explain it to me, Jasmine demanded, fighting back tears of anger and humiliation. Explain why you couldn't just be honest from the beginning. Devon ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as his tell when he was struggling with something difficult. Because every time I lead with the truth about my wealth, the relationship is over before it starts. Do you know what happens when people find out you're worth billions? They treat you differently, Jasmine said. You told me that already. It's more than different treatment, Devon said intensely. It's like becoming a completely different species in their eyes. Suddenly everything you say is brilliant, every joke is hilarious, every idea is genius. Or the opposite happens, you become a target, a prize to be won, a wallet to be accessed. Either way, the real person disappears. He leaned forward, his eyes pleading for understanding. When I met you on that balcony, you had no idea who I was. You talked to me like I was just a person. You argued with me, challenged my assumptions, shared your real thoughts. Do you know how precious that is? How rare? Her side of the story. Jasmine wanted to stay angry, but his words resonated with something she understood. I get that. I do. But you let me worry about rent, about my career, about money, while you sat on billions. You watched me stress about things that you could solve with pocket change. Would you have wanted me to? Devon asked. Really? You told me directly that you needed to build your career on your own merit. You made me promise not to intervene again. If I'd revealed my wealth, every achievement afterward would have felt tainted, wouldn't it? Jasmine fell silent because he was right. She'd been so determined to prove herself, to succeed without handouts or connections. If she'd known Devon could simply buy her success, it would have poisoned everything. I was going to tell you, Devon continued. I was just waiting for the right moment, for us to be solid enough that the truth wouldn't overshadow everything else. Then that magazine article came out 2 months earlier than expected. The real question. Why me? Jasmine asked, her voice softer now. With your resources, your status, you could be with anyone. Models, celebrities, other billionaires. Why pursue someone struggling to pay rent in Brooklyn? Devon's laugh was bitter. Because those people you're describing? They don't see me, Jasmine. They see what I represent. The lifestyle, the access, the social status. When I dated within my wealth bracket, conversations were about vacation homes and charity galas and who was investing in what. Nobody asked about my actual thoughts, my fears, what kept me awake at night. He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand but close. You asked me about my mother's struggles, about what it felt like to grow up with nothing. You called me out when you thought I was being dismissive of how hard it is to start with limited resources. You treated me like a real person with a real history, not like a walking bank account. The trust exercise. Jasmine pulled her hand back, still processing. I need time to think about this. Everything feels different now. When you paid for dinner, I thought you were just being nice. Now I know that meal cost you less than a penny costs me proportionally. When you helped with my work situation, I thought you were using moderate influence. Now I know you could probably buy my entire firm without noticing the expense. The proportions don't change how I feel about you, Devon said quietly. And they don't change who you are or what you've accomplished. Don't they though? Jasmine gathered her things, needing space to breathe. Because right now, I don't know if anything between us was real or if I was just playing a role in your escape from billionaire life. The days apart. For 5 days, Jasmine avoided Devon's calls and texts. She threw herself into her new position at work, proving to herself that she'd earned the promotion through her own skills. Her co-workers had no idea about her connection to Devon Sterling, and she intended to keep it that way. But alone in her apartment at night, she kept returning to the same questions. Had Devon's feelings been genuine? Was she being unfair to judge him for protecting himself the same way she'd been protecting herself? They'd both been hiding behind partial truths, both afraid of being valued for the wrong reasons. She reread the Forbes article multiple times, learning details Devon had never shared. His company had pioneered accessibility technology that helped millions of people with disabilities. His foundation funded scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds. He'd turned down acquisition offers that would have tripled his wealth because he believed in his company's mission over profit. This wasn't a man who'd built wealth through exploitation or luck. He'd created genuine value, helped real people, stayed true to principles even when it cost him. The grand gesture that wasn't. On the sixth day, Jasmine received a package. Her heart raced, expecting some extravagant gift, the kind of grand gesture billionaires made in movies. Instead, inside the simple brown box was a flash drive and a handwritten note on regular notebook paper. Jasmine, I'm not going to send flowers or jewelry or try to buy forgiveness. That would prove you right about everything you're afraid of. Instead, I'm sending you something I've never shared with anyone outside my company. On this drive is a project I've been developing personally for 3 years. It's not finished, and I'm stuck. I need a storyteller's perspective, someone who understands authentic human connection. I need your professional opinion, not as someone I'm dating, but as someone whose skills I genuinely respect. If you're willing, review the materials and tell me what's missing. No strings attached. Whether we figure out our personal situation or not, I value your insight. Devon. Jasmine plugged in the drive and found a detailed presentation for an educational platform designed to provide free creative writing resources to underserved communities. The technology was brilliant, the interface intuitive, but Devon was right, something was missing. The whole thing felt clinical, like it was designed by engineers for engineers. She opened a new document and began typing notes, her creative mind engaging with the problem. 2 hours later, she had a complete strategy for storytelling, user engagement, and community building that would transform the platform from a tool into an experience. The real conversation. Jasmine called Devon at midnight. The platform needs heart. You've built the skeleton, but you forgot the soul. Tell me more, Devon said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. They talked for 3 hours, Jasmine explaining her vision while Devon took notes and asked questions. He challenged some of her ideas, improved others, built on concepts she'd sketched out. They argued about user interface, debated the merits of gamification, and collaborated like they'd been working together for years. This is what I missed, Jasmine said when they finally paused. This. 2 people solving problems together, respecting each other's expertise, building something better than either could alone. I missed it too, Devon admitted. I missed you. Not because you're some escape from my wealthy life, but because you make me want to be better. You push back when I'm wrong, you celebrate when I'm right, and you never let me get away with intellectual laziness. The choice forward. I've been thinking about why I was so angry, Jasmine said carefully. Part of it was feeling deceived. But a bigger part was fear. Fear that I'm not enough for someone like you. That eventually you'll realize you could have someone more accomplished, more sophisticated, more appropriate for your actual life. Jasmine Carter, listen to me very carefully, Devon said seriously. I've dated appropriate people. Women with trust funds and boarding school educations and social connections. You know what all those relationships had in common? I was bored within 3 months. They were perfectly pleasant, perfectly suitable, and perfectly meaningless. He paused, then continued. You challenge me. You inspire me. You make me laugh and think and want to be worthy of your respect. The fact that you're still building your career doesn't make you less than anyone. It makes you someone who understands struggle, who has empathy, who hasn't forgotten what it's like to fight for opportunities. The new beginning. I want to try again, Jasmine said. But with complete honesty this time. No more partial truths, no more protected versions of ourselves. Real people with real complications. I can do that, Devon agreed. Though I should warn you, my real life includes boring board meetings, investment decisions I agonize over, and a mother who's going to interrogate you extensively because she's convinced I'll die alone. Jasmine laughed. And my real life includes student loan debt, a studio apartment with unreliable heat, and a tendency to work obsessively on projects until 3 in the morning. I already know about the 3 morning work sessions, Devon said warmly. You sent me 17 annotated pages of platform improvements at 2:47 last Tuesday. You want someone who sends you 17 pages of notes at weird hours? Jasmine, I want someone who cares enough about ideas to lose sleep over them. I want someone who argues with me about user interface design and wins. I want you, exactly as you are, complications and all. The real first date. They met the next evening at a restaurant Devon chose carefully, nice enough to be special, casual enough to be comfortable, and not so expensive that Jasmine would feel awkward about the bill. Full disclosure, Devon said as they sat down. I'm worth approximately $8.3 billion as of yesterday's stock close. I live in a modest apartment by choice, but I also own a company headquarters and have responsibilities that sometimes require unexpected travel. I'm generally private but occasionally need to attend public events. I'm offering you this information up front so you can make informed decisions about whether this is something you want to navigate. Jasmine appreciated his directness. Full disclosure on my end, I make $58,000 a year in my new position. I have $32,000 in student loan debt. I dream of starting my own creative agency someday but lack the capital and connections. I tend to overthink everything and sometimes push people away when I'm scared. I'm offering you this information so you can decide if I'm worth the complication. Devon reached across the table and took her hand. Jasmine, you're worth every complication. The question is whether I'm worth it to you. She looked at their joined hands, at this man who'd hidden his wealth not from shame but from a desire to be seen truly. She thought about their conversations, their collaboration, the way he listened to her ideas like they mattered because to him, they genuinely did. Yes, she said simply. You're worth it. The path forward. Their relationship didn't suddenly become perfect. Jasmine still struggled with moments of insecurity, wondering if she belonged in Devon's world. Devon sometimes forgot that his casual suggestions involved resources far beyond normal reach. They argued about money, about boundaries, about how to build something real across such different circumstances. But they also laughed. They collaborated on the educational platform, which launched 6 months later to widespread acclaim. They learned each other's fears and dreams. Devon met Jasmine's family in Ohio, charming her skeptical mother and bonding with her younger brother over basketball. Jasmine attended a technology conference with Devon, holding her own in conversations with industry leaders because she'd learned that expertise came in many forms. One evening, sitting in Devon's apartment overlooking the city, Jasmine reflected on the journey from that awkward gala to this moment of comfortable intimacy. Do you ever regret it? Devon asked, reading her thoughtful expression. Getting involved with someone whose life is so complicated? Jasmine smiled, snuggling closer. I regret the wrong dress that started everything. But the heart of a secret billionaire? That turned out to be exactly what I needed. Not the money or the status, but the person underneath. Someone who understood being underestimated, who valued authenticity, who saw me when I felt invisible. And you, Devon said, kissing her forehead, taught me that love isn't about finding someone from the right background or wealth bracket. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be honest, even when honesty is terrifying. They sat in comfortable silence, two people from different worlds who'd found common ground in unexpected places. The wrong dress had led to the right conversation, which had led to real connection despite all the complications. Sometimes the best love stories began with mistakes, misunderstandings, and moments of pure chance. What mattered was choosing truth over pretense, substance over appearance, and real connection over comfortable illusions. Jasmine had shown up in the wrong dress and accidentally won more than a billionaire's heart. She'd found a partner who valued her mind, respected her ambitions, and loved her not despite her struggles but because those struggles had shaped her into someone remarkable. And Devon had found what his wealth could never buy, someone who loved him not for what he had, but for who he was when everything else was stripped away. The end.